Okay, so this is the backstory about the person that the poem is for. Before I get to that, I want to just say that if you have not read my blog that explains what exactly happened to me at that workplace, you can read it. It's in the description box. But one thing that I want to set as a foundation for this is how I come into a workplace, how I approach a job. It's not just a job, and it's not just for a paycheck. It's connecting with people, networking, and kind of bringing a positive light to wherever I am, because I believe that I just want to go about my life doing good, being kind, being loving to people, being merciful, and it's really like a way to rid the world of the evil, the hate. Just that's how I go about my life, and it's very much how I approach any job, like no matter what it is. If it's me doing my work for my clients for the Smart Cookie Files, that's how I approach it. If it's me going to a day job, that's how I approach it. It's every interaction with people it has to be from that place, and it stems from a Bible verse, which is Matthew 5:38 through 44, and this is from the Message translation. It says, "Here's another old saying that deserves a second look. Eye for eye, tooth for tooth. Is that going to get us anywhere? Here's what I propose. Don't hit back at all. If someone strikes you, stand there and take it. If someone drags you into court and sues you for the shirt off your back, gift wrap your best coat and make a present of it. And if someone takes unfair advantage of you, use the occasion to practice the servant life. No more tit for tat stuff. Live generously." And that directly is how I live. I very much like to be just a generous person and go all out for people. "You're familiar with the old written law, love your friend and its unwritten companion, hate your enemy. I'm challenging that. I'm telling you, love your enemies. Let them bring out the best in you, not the worst. When someone gives you a hard time, respond with the energies of prayer, for then you are working out of your true selves, your God-created selves." But before I get to that, I do have to say that I approached that job, like as I said, with a generous mindset, just going all out, and not only for the actual job, something there that it was a dark and broken spirit. I don't know how to, other than that, clarify it. There was just something there that wasn't right, and I don't know if it had to do with the work environment or if it was the building and it was haunted. I don't really know, but I felt something dark there, and I felt it throughout my time there. And so I tried to remedy it because I come from a Christian worldview. I prayed. I always pray. That's what I did. I had every name of every person that worked there, as well as the people who worked at the other company, the sister company. So in this video, you'll hear me I'm not going to use any names. I will be using the nicknames of the guys that I worked alongside, as well as I will call the boss's wife, the boss's son, the manager. There is the nicknames of the guys was Mr. Clean, Rhythm and Blues, Boomerang, and Mr. Suncoast. And this is the story about Mr. Suncoast.
Native of mine, you're just my kind.
I interviewed for the job right before Thanksgiving on a Friday at, I believe it was like 2 o'clock. I had just gotten off my shift working as a hostess at IHOP, and I was asked to come for an interview. And I came and didn't know that I would meet somebody that day. And I was interviewing, and when I was interviewing, it was like we went out in the shop because she's like, oh, let me introduce you to our lead tech, Mr. Suncoast. And I was like in full-on business clothes, so it like did not fit the environment because like everybody else was dressed in like you know, the work clothes, which is like work clothes that you get dirty and like you don't care, you sweat in, like stuff for like hard labor work clothes. So like it didn't fit, even though it was going to be an office job that I was particularly doing. I like just felt so out of place, and I was wearing a bright pink blazer, and then she like brought me out there, and it was, I don't know what that was, but like I remember it being so damn dark in the shop to the point where there was no lights on. And then she's like, oh, this is Mr. Suncoast, our lead tech. And then it was funny, he like looked up at us, and then he said hi, and then he's like she like explained a little about him, and then he goes he laughed, and he's like, yeah, I'm the guy that's always here. And I like instantly, even though it was dark, I was like, okay, he's kind of cute. But like he was married when I first met him. I don't know why, but I guess because it was dark in there, he like looked like he was like 30 years old. And so yeah. And the first day, I don't even remember him being there. Honestly, like I feel like I was so stressed that I didn't even remember him being there. But then the second day, basically after the first day, I was like, yeah, no, I don't want to do this. And I even told my mom that. I was like, I don't want to do this. And then she's like, all right, give it the rest of the week. And if you don't like it after that, you don't have to go back. And so I went back the second day. And then there was customers that came in to do their billing and final payment. And like, I just started. I didn't know anything about anything. And like, I wasn't even being taught the first week. Like, there was no training. They were just like, they had me in there, and like, nobody was really paying attention to me. They were like, oh yeah, this is the new girl. But nobody was showing me anything. And they were just expecting me to just like pick up the phone and like know what to say and talk about the different window types and stuff. But it's like, of course, when you first start a job, you always are observing everything, listening to the terminology, you know, picking up how to best phrase stuff so the customers understand you, so putting it in layman's terms, because obviously Windows specifications, there's a whole bunch of math and jargon to it, and it's like, that to a regular person it like makes no sense. But it's like, oh, you know, was these customers came in to pay, right? And I didn't know what to do. And then out of the blue, he was there, and I remember I turned around because he was going to walk back to the shop, because he had just like, what he had done was he had given the boss's wife the form that the customer has to sign to say, yeah, we're satisfied with this, that, and the other. And he was going to walk back in the shop, and I go, what do I do? And then he, like, just literally turned around, didn't say anything, he just looked at me, then he, like, turned around, and he went and got their paperwork out of their bin for their particular coach, and, he put it on the counter, and then he, like, interacted with the customer just, like, slightly, and then, basically, he just started to walk away, and he like smiled at me, and he's like, just go get the boss's wife, she'll know what to do. And then I said, thank you. And that little small thing, like, he wasn't my trainer, he didn't have to care about me, I'm the new girl, but it's like that little small thing like really showed me that he was a good guy. And when I start a new job and like you feel like you're like out of place, like that little small thing is something that sticks with you. So it was like that it like built on of that he was a good guy, and then I felt like, yeah, I want to stick this out, because if this guy who could probably, he didn't have to give a shit about me, he like actually helped me for one moment in time. But this guy, like, as I went on, he had so much responsibility there. He was the like person there that like if there was a problem with the coach, he had to go out and talk to the customer and be like, oh, this is, you know, basically bullshitting them to the point where they were like, okay, we get it. Then he had to do a tour of the window process every day at 1:30, and but when he did the tour, it was like he became this other person, because as I went on knowing him, like when I first met him, he was like this person that literally he never smiled. He always looked like he could give a shit about this job. Like it was just like he was going through the motions. He was like not even paying attention. And like when I first started, because I was so stressed about making sure I got the gist of what I had to do every day, because like I am very like, I'm a perfectionist, so like I have to make sure that I'm doing it right. But as I went on in the job, obviously I was never doing it right, even when I was doing it right. Anyway, this guy though, he did the tour, and when he did the tour, it was like he was Mr. Charisma. He like got all this confidence, and then he would do the spiel, and whenever he would do the spiel, I was like listening to the whole thing, because like he was like really good at doing that. And it's like, first of all, it's like public speaking, that freaks me the heck out. I like, even doing this, I'm like freaked out right now. But this guy, he like was calm, cool, and collected no matter how many people were part of the store. There was one group that he did like 20 people, and it was like he just brought them all out there, and he was cool, and like he even would joke with the people. Like I was like, he's like so freaking cool. And besides that, then he also he was working within the shop. He was the guy that helped take apart the windows, and specifically he helped take apart the specialty windows, because like with RVs, they're very good with those. So they made him do that as well. Like he had a full day, okay? Like I thought my day was stressful, but he was doing like 5 people's jobs in one person, and he was just expected to go with it. And so he was doing all this work, but he wasn't really getting the credit, and it was something I instantly saw. And like then I understood like why he looked the way he did, like that he was broken. But then a few days after that second day incident, he had to actually talk to me about one of the coaches, because like that's what I was supposed to do, is like interact with the customer. I was the middleman of, okay, the guys in the shop, they found out this window needs to be fixed, it needs this many new pieces of glass, blah blah blah. He came over with the paperwork, and I don't know what it was, but it was like, it was still over, and he's holding the paperwork in front of me, and then he starts to talk, and he's literally stuttering his words, like he's stuttering, and then he just looked away, and he's like, Christ. And he always did that. He always mumbled Christ when he like couldn't figure out what to do, or like why he was doing something. Like he just felt like foolish. He would do that. And then he was blushing, and then he eventually told me about the coach and what it needed. But it was funny, because I was like, this guy is like the guy here. He's like the guy. And he doesn't even realize his own potential. And I'm like, what is with this? Like, why doesn't he see that he's handsome, he's well built, he's Mr. Charisma, he's funny, like, what's going on here? So I got to know him, and like from the other people, the family that owned the business, as well as the other window guys. He had been in a relationship for 3 years with the same girl. And so I said, okay, he has a girlfriend, so nothing's gonna go on here. But then there was something that happened where, like, I don't know if it was specifically on the second day, or like there was just a day where I heard God specifically tell me, you need to take care of him. So that's what I set out to do. So I just started doing things that I felt like were positive and would build him up. So I would encourage him. I would compliment his work. I would compliment. I remember he got a haircut, and all the guys literally were making fun of him, saying, "Oh, he's gonna go on a job interview and get a better job." And like, yeah, that's how guys are. They all bust each other's balls, whatever. But he literally, he had like a mop of hair, okay? And then when he got his haircut, he like looked like a totally new guy, but it's like he looked good both ways. Let me clarify that. But when he got his haircut, like, and then I heard them saying that to him, I was just like, so then I stopped in the middle of the freaking shop, and I stood there and I was like, "Hey, I'm Mr. Suncoast. Your haircut looks good." And all the guys, like, the whole freaking shop went freaking silent. Like, it was like if somebody dropped a pin in there, you would have heard it. And then as I'm walking back into the office, I hear the boss's son and Mr. Suncoast. And then I hear Mr. Suncoast go, "What the fuck was that?" And then the boss's son was just like, "Oh, I don't know." And then it was just a weird, like... but it was funny because then I also heard, like, them talking about the boss's wife and how she had said something weird about Mr. Suncoast's appearance the day before, and, like, they were making fun of it, and it was funny. But there was a lot of, like, during our busy season, there's a lot of French Canadians that come. And I remember it was my first experience with that. They came up to the desk and they literally spoke, like, barely any English. They were, like, the nicest people. Nicest. And then so I went out in the shop, and the boss's son was in the shop then, because during the busy season he would actually go work in the shop. Mr. Suncoast was there too, because he had his own table in the shop. So I go up to them, and the boss's wife was out there freaking bullshitting with them. And I go, "There's a customer in the office, and they barely speak any English." And I just said that outright. And Mr. Suncoast literally belly laughs. And he's like, he starts saying, "I can't believe she just said that." Like, and then he, like, caught himself like, "Oh, I'm talking about her right now as she's standing here. That's kind of weird. Those are the French Canadians, and this is the time." And then they were saying stuff about how the boss's son knew a little French, and, "Oh, you need to go in there and translate." And then he was like, "Oh, fuck no," or whatever. And so then I was like, "Well, I need a little assistance here. Can somebody come in and look at these windows?" And even though they don't speak English, and we'll just try to do the best we can. Who's up for the challenge? And then Mr. Suncoast literally just, like, dropped what he was doing, and he was like, "All right, let's do this." And well, he didn't say it like that, like, you know, out of a TV show. "All right, let's do this." He just, like, walked with, like, gusto, like he was like Mr. Macho, like, "Let's go." And we walked in, and then me and him were doing that, like, translating, and it was just like, I was just like, this guy, he doesn't know French, I don't know French, but we're doing this together. And it was, like, funny because it was almost like a skit out of a show. This guy just makes work fun, and, like, I just felt like I instantly felt like, I don't know, when you feel like you found your work best friend. But it was like, I didn't want to say that to him because it's, like, weird. Like, you have a girlfriend, and then some girl just says to you, oh, you're like my work bestie. Like, you don't say that to somebody who has a girlfriend. So I like just thought it, and it was something that I started to pick up on. Like, there was just something between us that was like, you don't even have to, like, there's no effort. It's like effortless. And it was like, we got it. We both understood. We were on that same page. We were on the same wavelengths. And it was just something that I didn't expect. It was very strange. And it took me by surprise. I realized that I kind of like had a crush on him. And so I decided that, well, actually the lady who got fired before me, she came in like a week prior to Valentine's Day, and she had said, oh, the way that I get the guys to talk to me more, because like they really weren't interacting with me. I guess they were just so used to like being like Neanderthal-ish, of like they don't like to communicate. They just like to nod their head and smile and like, and then go out there and be like talking bro, you know, speak to each other, which that sounds, but I like that environment. It's like I hang out at the skate park for that shit. That hypes me up, like, cause I'm like, I feel like I am, like, I just like to be one of the bros, in a sense, as a woman. I don't really like the gender role thing. I just feel like if you can do it, I can do it better kind of deal. And it's not like a competition. It's always like friendly. Like, I want to do just what you do, because like I just like the challenge. I don't like to be like a prissy little bitch of like just hyping off each other, feeding off each other, joking with each other, busting each other's balls. That's the kind of like thing that I like. So when I try to get the guys to talk to me, I buy them a dozen donuts from Dunkin'. So I was like, okay, I could do that, and I think I'll do it on Valentine's Day. And I'll not only do that, but then they had given me, when I got 2 dozen donuts. One was specialty, the brownie batter that they always have around that time. And then the other one was just a mixed dozen, because I didn't know what the Dunkin' Valentines, and they were adorable. And then I was like, oh, I think I'll get, oh no, I think it's because I decided I was buying them each a $5 gift card. So there was 14 members of the staff at that time, including the boss's family. I included them in it because as I said, I just wanted to break whatever darkness was there. I didn't know if it had to do with them or if there was just a spirit in the building, as I said. So I did that, and then each of the guys, I wrote their specific name on the Valentine, but there was one that, like, I seen the Valentine, and I said, that's the one that I'm giving to Mr. Suncoast. So, when I wrote it out, I remember my hand was shaking, because I was like, okay, you really have a crush on this guy, and you're about to, like, give him this Valentine, and it says something very specific. It had said, you complete me. So I gave him that, and when I came in that day, I had wrote, Happy Valentine's Day, dudes, enjoy the donuts, and there's a Valentine for everybody, or something on the whiteboard. Then I went out in the shop, and I also was like, oh, you know, there's donuts in the break conference room, and also Valentine's for everybody. And then they all were just like, like they just acted nonchalant. So I was like, okay, cool. I like that day, it was so freaking cold, and I remember I dressed in like this new dress that I had, and like I really just wanted to dress super pretty, because like I just wanted him to see me as like a girl and not one of the guys. And I like to look in the mirror and be like, wow, girl, you look fly. I gave him the Valentine at the end of the day, because like I didn't ever see him even come in for a donut. And like I kept trying to be like, oh, you know, here's your Valentine. Most of the guys I had to like specifically be like, here's your Valentine, they're like, what, you got us a Valentine besides the donuts? Like, they were like blown away. I was like, yeah. But it was cool. Like, the person that I liked the most out of the family that owned the business was the boss's daughter that day, and she had a donut, and I let her take a couple extra donuts, because then she said, oh, I'm going to give them to the lady who hired me, the executive manager. And I said, oh, go for it. And but then she's like, oh, you got everybody a little Valentine so that they know that they're loved and cared for. And she's like, that's just so sweet, Chelsea, thank you. And like, I was like, you get it, you get it, you get what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to just say, you guys are valued, you guys are cared about. And I'm sorry you have to work for somebody who doesn't see you for what you are, but I just want you to know that I think you're great, you know, like. So he like, then, like, I don't know if it was a week later or like a few weeks later, but I started to notice that he like started to look at me more, like, and then we started to talk a little bit more, and then he actually was like, he wasn't just going through the motions, like he actually would like interact, and like I saw him like light up more, like walk with his shoulders back and his head up, and like I was like, okay, good, it's working. Would pray for everybody on staff, but then I specifically felt like I needed to pray for him specifically, because I just felt like he was still, like, there was still something there that I had to work with, and I just wanted to break it. Whatever was holding him down and keeping him, like, feeling miserable. I would pray for him at night, and, but there was just, like, there was things that I started to notice about him that they just started to always mock him. They would body shame him and make fun of everything about him. And then I started to see, like, that has to weigh on you. Like, I don't care who you are, that weighs on you. Like, to constantly be reminded that they think you're fat and, like, you need to eat a salad for lunch, stop eating this. Like, really? Okay, let me just say, this guy, he's like, he was 5'8", so it's like, he wasn't tall. That was his stature. He wasn't fat. He was freaking, in my opinion, he was sexy as hell. And, like, they would just constantly demean him and, put him down. But then I started to notice that, like, we started to connect more, and, there was a day where this guy came in out of the blue. He didn't have an appointment, and then he was, like, chatting me up. Like, he was, like, asking me a lot of personal questions. And Mr. Suncoast was standing in the office listening to what he was saying. Then he walked back in the shop, and the guy finally walked out. And when the guy walked out, then he came walking back in. And he comes up to my desk, and he's like, who is that guy? And I'm like, it's just a customer. He wants this or that, and stuff. And he goes, and, like, his whole face, like, he showed, like, a little bit of relief. And he's like, oh, well, he's pacing back and forth outside. And I was like, oh, really? That's weird. He's just getting an estimate or whatever. But then, like, I caught on, I was like, was he, like, trying to see if that guy was, like, interested in me, and, like, if I was interested in him, because I definitely was not interested in him. It takes a lot for me to be interested in a guy. Yeah, so it's, like, I prefer to be, like, the girl with the brains, the girl who's got a wicked sense of humor, the girl, who listens to cool taste in music, not the girl who's got a hot bod and looks good in a bikini. Like, I never have set out to be that girl. I know nobody really does, I don't think, but it's like, there's more to life, and looks fade. That type of connection definitely burns out, simmers out. So I don't. And then there was a guy that worked there that ended up, like, having an incident with me in the supply closet where I felt sexually harassed by him. He grabbed me from behind and he didn't grab me inappropriately, but like it was just the way he grabbed me, and then he was holding me, and then I was actually on the phone with the customer, and like I just felt like, I am trying to do my job, what are you doing? Like, don't touch me. He was complimenting me, and I felt like we were friendly, but then it was like he would just be, I could just tell that he just wanted like sexual gratification from me. And so I saw that like he started to pay more attention to me, and then that incident was like he showed direct like interest, but it was like not, it was like nonchalant, and like if somebody wasn't aware of like how guys are, they wouldn't have picked up on that. But like, being that he was this guy that literally, when I first started, he was nice to me, but it was like we barely ever talked, and then he like would just never even look at me. He would always look down at the floor. And but then we started, like, once I like did, especially with the Valentine, and I also complimented his hair, I noticed that he cared more about his appearance. And like then whenever he would come in for his break, I would like make a joking comment. And like one time, like I remember the first time I like said something to him, I was like, oh, they're letting you out of prison? And he's like, yeah. And it was funny. But it was like stuff like that where it's like you just feel like they're like, you just are like understood. There's nothing where you have to like try. And that to me is like something that's rare, at least for me anyway, because it's like I try, and like especially in the romance department, I feel like I give so much effort and I never get it back. And I know that sounds sad, but it's like that's where I come from. So when it's like you have this instant connection with somebody, and like you don't even have to try, and like you can say whatever you really want to say, and like you feel like they're not going to judge you, that's like important, especially being that most of the other people that work there, like outside of the guys in the shop, Boomerang and Rhythm and Blues, it's like they were judgmental, and they were constantly making mocking comments about each other. They were constantly making mocking comments about all the employees, and like just people, like they don't even know them. They were like shallow comments, like about their intelligence level, about their body, about how they smell. Like, what does that matter? They're just your employee, and you should treat them as such. Like, you wouldn't have a business if it weren't for them being outside doing all the freaking work. But, well, actually, I know the specific date it was because I wrote it down. But, it was March 11th, 2019. There was a customer that came in late in the day, and then he was checking in, and like Mr. Suncoast was there with me, and we were both checking him in inside the office. And then the customer goes, oh, if a pretty girl tells you to sign the papers, you better just sign the papers. And then Mr. Suncoast, like, he didn't have to say anything, but he goes, yeah, you're right. Like, and I was just like, are you saying that I'm pretty? 'Cause like, thanks. But like I didn't say anything, and like I didn't even say thank you when that was said. But I just remember I like looked down, and like I just like tried to hide. Like I had a huge smile on my face because I'm like, oh my god. Started to like really have like a friendship. I started to notice that like me and him had the same interest in music and stuff. And but before that, it was like there was another incident where when you walk down to the shop, if somebody on the other side of the door like pulled the door, they would actually, like, it would actually make you feel like the door was like pulling out from under you. And like he did that to me, and like I thought nothing of it because like it happened, and like, and then he was just there holding the door. And but then the next day, like one of the other guys goes, oh, you know, like I love to do this prank where you like hold the door, and then it actually makes the person feel like they're gonna fall. And I was like, oh wow, Mr. Sun, like I said this out loud, which I probably shouldn't have, but I was like, oh, Mr. Suncoast did that to me yesterday. I was just like, oh wow, so was he flirting with me? And then I just started to like pick up on things where like it felt like we weren't just like being friendly or being coworkers, like there was something else going on. At the end of March, it was like I would always say goodbye to the guys, and like then they would never even say anything. And actually when I first started doing that, they all were like, what, she's talking to me? Like, and it was weird, like nobody ever said goodbye to them or like hello, nobody said good morning. And then at the end of March, like he was leaving, and I remember like I was doing like, I think I was making copies, and then I came back in the office, and then he was clocking out, and then he just goes bye, and he said it right to me, like he looked me in the eye and said it, and like I was just like, oh wow, it's actually working. Like I just felt like I was starting to make a difference. And then shortly after that, like I also was doing this thing where I would write a motivational quote always on the board in the morning when I came in, because like I just like quotes a lot. I just felt like I was also doing that in order to, just a small thing to create a positive. And I put the quote on the board, and then one of the days I was just like, does anybody even care about this? So I like didn't put it on for a couple of days. And then at the end of the week, like I remember when Boomerang, he specifically said to me, oh, I really love when you put those quotes up, because I love to read them because they just get my mind thinking. And he's like, and they also like encourage me and motivate me for the day and give me something positive to think about. And I was just like, wow, like it counts. And then it was funny, like I stopped doing it like later in the time I was there, and then one of the delivery people for the food also, they're like, oh, whoever writes those quotes, they should keep doing that, because it's like it's so like positive and encouraging. And I was just like, the delivery guy, like really, the delivery guy. He had said goodbye to me. I like decided that like I would get Jolly Ranchers from the tanning salon that I went to, and I don't really care for candy or whatever. I like felt like that was the next thing I wanted to do for the guys. Was there was a candy dish in my office, and they would only have Werther's caramels and like mints, and like those are like old people candy. Like nobody likes that. Like those always remind me of, I grew up Catholic, and they remind me of the frickin' ushers would have Werther's in their pocket. But anyway, so I put 2 Jolly Ranchers in the candy dish as an experiment to see who would pay attention to it, who reacted to it, like what would happen. And I put them in there like they were hidden underneath the Werther's. And then Mr. Suncoast walks in, and I'm like doing something, so I wasn't even remembering that they were in there. And then all of a sudden I hear him go, Jolly Ranchers, really? And he was like a kid on Christmas. Like it was like the best thing I ever witnessed. He was like so excited about the fact that there was Jolly Ranchers in there. And like I was like, this is awesome. Like I just made his day, and he didn't even know it was me. Whatever, he walked out, and he like walked out with like a pep in his step, like he was just like so stoked that there was Jolly Ranchers. And it was just like, it made my freaking day to know that I made him happy like that. Like just to do that, to see him that happy, it made me happy. And like then I started to like, as I would hear him being criticized and mocked and body shamed and stuff, like I started to come home from work, and like then I would pray, but then when I would be going to sleep, I would literally bawl my eyes out, because like not only was I being harassed, but like the way they would talk about him specifically, because as I said, he was like the guy, he was doing it all, and then being talked about that way, like really? And it just hurt me. And then I was like, why are you crying about somebody else and how they're being treated? And I just started to realize, like, I liked seeing him happy. And I was like, well, if this guy's happiness means more than even your own happiness, then it's not just a crush. It's like way deeper than that. And I just realized that I was falling for him, and that I think I might have loved him. And it was just something that I didn't want to admit to myself, didn't want to know, didn't want to even think could happen at a job like that, but it did. And it's something that I feel like that's why I have to talk about this, because I have to heal this other part. There wasn't anybody that really, like, I connected with in the office. Like, I tried to connect with them as best I could, and obviously try to be kind, try to be loving, try to be merciful, because even when they literally were really nasty, some of the things that the boss's wife would say to me, I was just like, you don't even know me, why would you say that to me? But it was just like, you could tell that she was coming from, like, I always know that when somebody's like that mean, they're coming from a place of utter brokenness. Like, they do not have any self-confidence. They only have been plagued with self-doubt most of their life, and harsh and hard things have happened to them that they've felt pressed in, so they have to push back, and the only way they know how to do that is to put somebody else down, like push them down. And that's literally what she was doing. Like, she was literally, like, her words were so sharp, so cutting, so demeaning towards me that I was just like, you say that? But, like, I would hear her talk to her daughter that way too, and I was just like, what the heck? But it was like, it was stemming from, there was a whole thing that I talk about in the blog, but it's like, her husband would do that to her, and then she would do it to me or to her daughter, and then sometimes she would even do it to her son. Like, there was just like this energy that was passing around, and it was negative. And it, like that, like I said, I tried to push back from that. I tried to retract it by putting good out. It was very, very hard, but you, like, when you are someone like me who has always been talked to in a way that isn't very kind, isn't very loving, like, then I feel like that's why I react that way, is because I don't like when I'm talked to like that. So why would I think that anyone else does? So I try to be the opposing force of good. Like, I'm not the most attractive person in the room. I'm not the smartest. I have a strong intuition. I'm curious. And I observe really well. Like, I have really good hearing. I am very keen on paying attention. And then I also listen more instead of talk. So sometimes I get the label of being shy. Long day, there was like a coach, like, I still was learning the coaches, which I was learning the coaches. Like, I actually would Google them, and then if I had any other questions about them, I would always go to Mr. Suncoast, because he literally was like an encyclopedia for RVs. Like, he knew the coaches like nobody's business. Yeah, and then there was like an incident where the boss's son and the boss's wife were kind of like mocking me because, like, I didn't know about the coach, and like I had told a customer some wrong information, but it was like the slightest thing that, like, oh, you could totally correct it and let them know. And of course, you know, you could always call the customer if they went back out to their coach, you could just be like, oh, sorry, I made a mistake. Like, it's an easy fix. But everything there was always that it was a drama. It was like straight out of, like, you know, I don't know if you're familiar, but I watched General Hospital. I've grown up on it. And it's like, they have like the really tense moments, and like there's that music, and you just know like something's about to go down. Like, that's what it felt like. Like, they would always make everything into, like, you would hear that music, ba ba ba, and like you would be like, oh, like, this is gonna be a drama again. on the next episode of Suckville, USA. Then it was funny because like they went out in the shop and they were talking to Mr. Suncoast. And then she came back in and then she goes, Mr. Suncoast was actually really surprised that you didn't know that about the coach. And I was like, oh, he was surprised, was he? So he actually thinks that I'm smart enough to know better about the coach. About the coach. When, like, I was learning the basics, but it's like I was not studying it, and I definitely wasn't an encyclopedia about RVs. Wow, that must mean that he actually believes in me and my potential here. And I was like, okay, at least somebody believes in me, and I'm glad it's him, because as I already said, I started to notice that I had deep feelings. And then a couple days later, out of the blue, it was the first day that he ever said, like, I walked into the shop, and normally when I walked in, like, nobody would say anything to me. And I remember I walked in that day, and, like, he just looked at me, and he goes, good morning, and I was like, who are you? Like, somebody actually said good morning to me? What is this? And, like, he was chipper, and my favorite day ever working with him was, June 26th. He had just come back from, he had been off the day before, but, like, during this time, the family actually was gone, and they had left me in the office with the fiance and of the boss's son. And so I was like, oh good, like now I can like really get to know the guys and like not have to feel like I have to hide it and like be ashamed that I like the guys, and like I want to get to know them and I want them to feel valued. Like I see them this certain way. And so then he had come back from, he had his birthday, and he came back, and like we talked about his birthday, what he did, and then I showed him, like I was like, I have a present for you. And then I showed him like this lady actually blogged about his whole tour. Like she wrote a whole on blog about his tour, and then she had his picture and stuff on there, and I was like, I don't know if anyone ever showed you this, but this is you. I go, you're famous. And he lit up, and it was just adorable. And then he needed to go in the supply closet, and like it was funny because that's where we would talk a lot, mostly, especially if the family was there. Like we would always talk in the supply closet. Like that's where we would get to know each other, and like in my head I called them closeted conversations. Supply closet, like I had talked to him about his birthday and stuff, and like normally when we talked it was me mostly asking all the questions and then he was just answering, but he was basically opening up to me, and I never repeated anything that he really told me to anybody, because it's like he was opening up to me and like that mattered. And so we were walking to the supply closet, and when we got in there, then he actually turned it around and he asked me, he's like, so how was it working yesterday? I heard blah 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 about this customer. And I was like, wow, this is a two-sided conversation. He actually asked about me. And it was like a big moment. So, but yeah, I understand that I tend to fictionalize guys. I tend to build them up in my head, and maybe I was all wrong. Maybe this guy was not as good as I thought. And he definitely probably wasn't interested in me. I don't really know. Because, okay, so some of the things that I did for the guys to like make sure that they all felt valued, because like I was taking care of him specifically and making sure he felt valued and built up, and that he understood that he had like incredible potential as a human being. And but it's also like I wanted them all to feel that way in a sense, so I just, especially during that week when the family was gone, I had decided that I got 2 huge ringleaders from Publix, and I got a whole cooler of Gatorade, like 2 12 packs, of my favorite flavors of Gatorade, which is the cherry and one of the other ones. I think the red one. Basically, like, we got along up until it was like July was like a strange month because after they came back from their trip, my dog actually passed away, and they were actually like, they went out of their way to be nice to me, and like I started to think that maybe they started to see me with value, but like I was playing myself. And then in August, I remember just like feeling like I can't be here anymore. And so kind of like I started going through the motions of like obviously my one and only objective was making sure the guys were okay. But I didn't really like working there, and like when the hours, like our hours started to be cut, I would take every opportunity to leave as soon as the boss's wife would get there, because like she was like my main bully in the workplace, and I just wanted to avoid her at all costs. So I would go home early a lot in order to not really interact with her. And then in September, like I actually noticed that the guys, they went from being like where they connected with me and like they were grateful that I would do these things to starting to expect it. And then they also were like kind of where they started to like pull back from me, and I felt like I started to just feel like I had nobody. And I started going in the bathroom a lot at work and crying and like wishing that I was dead. And I know that sounds really dire, but like that's literally what would happen. And then I would like let it all out, and then I would just go back to my desk and act like nothing happened. Number 6th was I like wanted to do something really nice for the guys because like their hours had been cut, and like it was like the slower part of the season. The only thing that I would think about when I was at work is like new things that I could do for the guys, new ways that I can make them feel like they mattered. And like that was mostly what I was always thinking about, and like writing down, making lists. Outside of that, I also was doing, as I mentioned in the blog, off the book marketing for the company, and like I was thinking of ways to make sure that there was steady work there, because I just didn't like seeing that my friends were getting cut and they weren't making enough. Like they literally were pulling from their vacation days to make ends meet, and that pissed me off. And there was nothing that was being done about it, so I like was trying to do everything I could to fix it. And so yeah. But at the end there, I gave, the last thing that I did was like he came in the day before into my office, and he goes, "It smells like goddamn blueberry muffins in here." And it was funny because I had started wearing a new perfume, and it had fruit undertones to it. So like I was like, oh gosh, like that's what he smelled. And then it was funny because like the boss's wife was like, "Oh, we got Chinese. I don't know why you smell blueberry muffins," but that was why, because of my perfume. So yeah, that was a thing. And like I just remember I was like, I'm gonna get him a blueberry muffin, and then also get the other guys muffins for breakfast, but they'll get the pumpkin muffin because that had just come out from Dunkin'. It was always Dunkin', but I just decided that was what I was gonna do. And then I also gave them, like, they had a promotion going right then, where you would get like coupons on your coffee, and I just had a ton in my wallet that I wasn't using, so I like decided I would put each of them in a card and then I wrote something like, oh, this little season is dwindling down, and then I signed it Chelsea, and I addressed it to each of them. So it was like, it felt personalized, because that was always important to me, that everything that I gave them also was like, this is for you. I specifically thought of you when I gave you this, and because like that's really, when you give a gift, you want it to be, oh, that somebody just didn't go right before they came to your house, they went and stopped at Publix and got a gift card and they just pulled it off the rack and gave it to you. No, like, you want that somebody thought about it, thought about you, and thought about what you like, what you don't like, and they cared. He goes, yeah, I heard that you got everybody muffins. And I was like, yeah, I got everybody pumpkin muffins, but I got you a different muffin. He's like, you got me a blueberry muffin? And I was like, yeah, I didn't just get you a blueberry muffin, I got you a goddamn blueberry muffin. And I remember his face, like, he just looked like he was completely shocked. But also there was like this other like strange thing that happened, because then that was when he was clocking out for his break. And then when he came back from break, I go, like, his was the only muffin I had left because I had him in my lunchbox. And I was like, do you want this or not? And then, like, I wasn't trying to bother him about it, but I didn't know if he wanted it then or if he wanted it later. And so then I just was asking. And then he, like, kind of, like, looked like he was annoyed that I was giving it to him. And then he's like, yeah, I'll take it or whatever. But it was, like, the way he said that, like I was annoying him. And then I just started to feel like, I'm doing this stuff so you feel valued. I literally even would take money out of, like, I would carry cash on me, and then if the guys didn't get a tip for the week, I would actually put cash in the tip jar so that they would have a tip at the end of the week. And it was funny because once I put money in there, people start to tip, because that's how it works. If they see money in a jar, people are like, oh, I want to give to this cause. So, like, that's what they do. So that's what I would do in order to help them. Like, I literally, like, the guys, that was everything that I was focused on at the end there. And I guess that's where I went wrong, because it just wasn't appreciated anymore. And then obviously I had just felt like the brunt of the abuse, and like that whole last week, working, the whole last full week that I worked, it felt like me and Mr. Suncoast were disconnected. There was just something strange that had happened, and it almost felt like he figured out that I liked him, and he was like actually like disgusted by the thought. And so I just like felt like, this is it, I can't be here anymore. And then it was funny because then, like, events transpired and everything came out, and it turned, and there was also other things that I did there that I will not talk about, but that I did in order for the truth to come out. But no, and I decided that I didn't want to do it, and I came back that first Monday then and worked just as the note had said. But the last thing that he had actually said to me was that I asked him, because he was getting his own place and like moving, and I said, oh, do you have enough boxes? Do you need any more boxes? And then he rolled his eyes, and then he said, oh yeah, I don't need any boxes. And then he's like, oh, it's going good, we got all our stuff. And she brought her bedroom set, and like he directly said that, and then he like basically walked out of the office. Like, he made it a point to say about his girlfriend's bedroom set, and I decided like that was a definite sign that things were not good. So as I said, I then worked the last Monday there, and the last ever thing that he said to me was, I had felt like everyone, when I walked in that morning, they had thought that I was not coming there, because then all three guys were in the shop and they all were gathered together, and Mr. Clean, Rhythm and Blues, and Mr. Suncoast, and they were all talking about how I was getting axed. And I mean, not necessarily I was getting axed, I was being put on probation, but it's like, it's the same thing. It's like, you're at the bottom of the barrel, and basically this is it. If someone like shoots off a gun, it could hit you in the head and you're dead. So yeah, I just felt like they all knew. And then it was funny because that was the last thing that he had said to me was, he goes, we were talking about a coach that came, that they had a habit of not ever having keys for their coach, and so then you would basically leave it unlocked on the property, and then it would just be unlocked, which is unsafe because that area of town definitely has a lot of homeless people. And yeah, he goes, well, they better start bringing keys, because with the habit of how many people get fired around here, it's definitely not safe to not have keys to lock up the coaches. And then he looked right at me, and like, I didn't know whether or not he was angry with me or if he was angry with them for giving me the boot. And so, but I never asked him. I wanted to, and I feel like if I would have told him everything that I knew, like all the stuff that I had witnessed and how I felt about it, and asked him what he thought I should do, including about the sexual harassment, I feel like he would have actually listened to me, and maybe it would have turned out differently. Not necessarily keeping my job there, because I don't think I would have either way. But I definitely feel like in terms of unemployment, they might have given me the benefits that I desired, but it didn't go that way. And then so I left, and then 2 weeks after I left, I texted him, thank you for everything, Mr. Suncoast, and I didn't get a response. And then I reached out to one of the other, Boomerang, and he goes, Chelsea, yeah, this it's Boomerang, I'm here. And then, like, because I was like, I knew it was not his number but his girlfriend's, thank you for all your help, and for, it was an honor to work with you. Nothing. No response. So, and then I never heard from anybody the day that, like, they all came into work and I had resigned. Nothing. I was not called even by the company or anybody there, not even the family, saying we could work through this. No, they had wanted to get rid of me, and it's fine, because it wasn't a loss to me. Yes, it was a strange thing to quit a job and not really have another one lined up, but I just always believe that God provides, so I didn't really stress it as much. It was scary, but it was definitely the right thing to do. And then I knew that I also had to come out with everything that I had witnessed and experienced, so that's why I wrote that blog. I specifically wrote that blog just for me to share the story. It was never meant to be anything else, but then I decided in December that I was gonna apply for unemployment, and that was a whole other thing. I didn't realize that they would drag out a lot of it, and that basically then they were going to be on the side of the employer. But being that Florida is a right to work state, it was never going to be in my favor, especially because I didn't have any cooperating evidence, direct evidence, like specifically recordings of them. I had wanted to get them on recording, but I never went about it. I just had written everything directly from memory, and like from that blog. And then basically the blog, then when I was putting together my evidence for the hearing and whatnot, I remembered other incidences that directly like showed that they were not, they like forced me to quit, but it didn't go the way it was gonna go, and so be it. And then I appealed it afterwards and wrote, a really good case of everything, and even showed them the letter from OSHA where I reported the rats at there, and they had said in my letter of final decision that I had made a compelling case, but it still wasn't in my favor. Well, I just didn't bother him. I didn't talk to him. And then on January 6th, I woke up at like 11 in the morning, and I turned my phone on. And when I turned my phone on, I kid you not, his face came up in my notifications, like, and then it said people you may know from Facebook, and then it had his name, and then it said that my sister was a mutual friend. So I was like, I like thought about it all day, and then around like 3 o'clock I decided that I was gonna send him a friend request and see what happened. I sent him the friend request, and then around 6 o'clock that night, I like went on and I searched him on Facebook to see if he had checked it yet. And I mean, but because I didn't get a notification. And then I noticed that he blocked me on Facebook. And I was just like, okay. So he really like did end up not caring. Like, you were somebody who I literally felt like got me on a level that no one really ever has. But it wasn't like that. And then that week, that was when I also got the phone call for unemployment, and I had to rehash everything. And like, then I went into like this really dark depression. And then I started to come out of it after I did the appeal hearing, where I really felt like my testimony was botched because the guy that basically was taking the side of the employer. And like I said, I didn't have any witnesses, I didn't have a lawyer, and I didn't even have the proper evidence that I probably needed to like speak my case. And so I felt better about that because I at least had stood up to them directly and said, this is like what I was trying to do, but you didn't see it, you didn't value me, you didn't know that like you have somebody in your office who literally is an expert at marketing, studied it in school, and also has a deep intuition for it, and you just didn't utilize that. So I just wanted them to feel bad in that regard. But other than that, it's like, I was proud of myself that I did that. I felt a little better, and I decided I wanted to reach out to him. And I picked Valentine's Day, I don't know why, and I had sent him a message that said, hey, I just wanted to let you know that I miss you, and I hope you have a jolly day. And then he texted me, who is this? And then I said, like something joking, and then I was like, no, it's Chelsea. And then he didn't reply. And then after that, then a week later, I sent him another message where I sent him a new song for the band that I really liked, that we had talked about many times, and he didn't reply. So I let him go, but it's been like, I've been grieving that a lot and dealing with it, but I feel like by me putting this out here, it's putting it out, and now it's out and everybody can know, and there's no question. I don't even care if he watches this. In life, you either end up with anything, it either is a blessing to you, or it ends up being a lesson. And in terms of Mr. Suncoast, he was both a blessing and a lesson. He really did bless me the time that I spent. And but then it's a lesson that, you know, it doesn't always work out. Love is not enough, and you just have to take it for what it is and accept it. But I do miss him still, and just wish him the best and hope that all the guys are still good at Suckville, and that people are tipping you, that somebody's taking care of you there. I still think about you. Just wanting to go back to those moments where we really felt like we were on the same page, and like it felt so good, like the energy, the good vibes. That's the part that I miss. But I'll come past it and it'll be okay. I don't want anyone to think that I'm not okay by putting this video out. I am addressing something that I have not addressed ever. It even took me a long time to even tell my family and be a real woman about this. But yeah, so, and please don't message me and be like, oh, I have this perfect person for you, I want to set you up with. I don't want you to do that. Please do not do that. Just let me deal with this on my own. But I did need to just come out with it because it's important. I don't know how many people will actually watch this, and I don't even know if he will watch any of these, but I decided I don't care, and I want this to come out, and I just want to be real about this, because that's all I ever tried to be there, was a real person, and show these people that someone can love you, someone can care about you, even though they barely know you. Sorry that I wasn't worth your response, or like that you didn't care that I left. It's okay. I just still hope that you're okay. But I'm sorry, I just feel like you guys all work somewhere else and do so much good. You really could. But it's okay. But another thing that I have to say is, like, I know this may come off as like a joke, and some people may even watch this, and I'm sure that they'll comment something really mean or whatever, but it's okay. I'm used to being the joke with most things in my life. I'm used to not being taken seriously. I'm used to not being listened to, heard, or seen. So it's okay. Be it how it is, whatever. I'm ready for this. I'm ready for the reaction to this. I'm ready for whatever may come of this. But I had to share this, and it had to come out. So thank you for watching this. Thank you for caring. If you or someone you know has been a victim or experienced workplace harassment, workplace discrimination, or you felt demeaned or belittled in your workplace, and you felt that it was a toxic work environment, please feel free to go to the link in my description box and check out betterbrave.org. They're an organization that empowers people that have experienced workplace discrimination, sexual, and any type of harassment, as well as anyone who has felt like they worked in an environment that was toxic. They provide resources, they have workshops, and they empower employees to speak up and be braver within the workplace about things that they see and witness. And I really believe they're a great organization, so please check out the link in the description to find out more about them, as well as you can donate directly to them. You can also donate on my website, chelseadefriesauthor.wordpress.com. Thank you.